Hey there, and welcome back to Get Going Fast, and more specifically, our ComfyUI tutorials. Okay, so it's been a little bit since we've released a video, so thank you so much for your patience. I do appreciate you. You're a very patient person. That's a good quality. So I'm certain that's going to get you a gal. Now, we're going to look today just really quickly at what a node is. So a lot of this stuff that I find with most computer stuff isn't saying like this is what you have and how to use it, but it kind of comes down to comprehension and understanding. So for me, I'm kind of a physics guy. I like to, in school I liked physics. I like calculus, this kind of stuff, because I like understanding how things work, and I like understanding the why. So we're going to just really quickly look at what a comfy node is. That shouldn't take more than just a couple minutes, but I'm going to try to go a little bit deeper just to explain to you how they work so that you can get a better idea of the bigger picture. Now, is that going to do anything for you on a practical level? Probably not, but it will help you when you're working with this stuff to kind of conceptualize what you're doing. So you're going, oh, okay, so it doesn't actually make me more productive, let's say, but it does help me to comprehend what I'm doing. Oh, when I'm doing this, this is what I'm doing. Oh, when I'm doing this, this is what's happening. And that's kind of what I want to go for mostly when I'm trying to educate you guys with this stuff. So we're going to pop into this. It's really not going to be more than probably a 5 to 10 minute video, so hang in there. But beforehand, do like and subscribe to the channel. Really helps when you tell your friends about it and tell your neighbors about it, and get people into this hobby, because the more people involved, the better it is for us all. So thank you for doing that. Very much appreciate it. Be sure to hit us up on Instagram and Reddit and all that. If you want to be part of the community, you are so welcome to be part of the community. I would love to figure out how we could work together and help you reach your goals and promote it all together. So hit me up if you're interested. And in the meanwhile, let's get on to taking a look at what exactly is a ComfyUI node. Yo. All right, so when we first load up our ComfyUI, it's going to load up to something like this, or whatever workflow that you have previously loaded. So this is called a workflow because it's flowing from one side to the right. So since we're in in the West here, we're going from left to right. I know, like in Japanese, Chinese cultures, they often read from right to left, but this is a flowing from left to right. Okay, so we're starting with a checkpoint and we're flowing through these lines into each thing, and it culminates over here in the farthest right. Now, these are all called nodes. Okay, so a node is basically a little object. I think the easiest way to think of it is an object. We're going to talk a little bit more about what exactly that is, and more of a more definitional word, but I think right now you just got to think of it as an object that works with another object. If you have a vehicle and you have an engine, okay, the engine starts up and it's, or whatever, the ignition, maybe this is an ignition object, okay, and this over here goes to the gas pump, okay? And so it goes over here and it says, hey, send gas. And so it sends gas over to this part. And over here we've got the clutch, which is sending a signal over here saying the signal's going in. And we've got, whatever else going on here. And then it gets over here, receives the gas, receives a signal from our clutch, let it know that, or our brake, whatever, knows that it's on, sends it over to the ignition, and the ignition goes and starts the vehicle. So each one of those things could be broken down into an object: an engine, a clutch, a gas pump, all of these things. Okay, so objects, they're nodes. They all have a part in making something work, and when you put them all together, okay, they create a workflow. So this is like an object. Okay, so this is a basic object which we get here when we go to ComfyUI just by clicking on workflow. We can browse templates and just click this image generation. Okay, and this brings up your basic workflow. So this one loads a model. Okay, this is like our ignition key kind of here. Okay, checking the fob, make sure that it's got something in there that can run. Goes up here, it grabs the text prompt. Okay, grabs the negative text prompts, set some parameters to the size, goes up here to our sampler. Okay, these are all nodes, one node flown to another node, and then goes over to sampler, which is going to set the parameters for ignition. Going to go over there, make sure that it's filtered, the gas is filtered in the correct way, or it's going through the right thing, and it's going to head out there. So then when we press the key, when we press the button or do whatever, it's going to flow through there. And there we have it. So we, in essence, have an image generation machine. And I think that's a good way to look at this, okay? So it is one thing that is defined by several little things, okay? By several little nodes. Okay, so what exactly is a node? Okay, well, let's zoom this out, actually. So you can see what exactly is a node. Okay, well, good question. Let me see if I can fix the screen for you. I'm not sure what happened there. I must have done something here. There we go. Okay, so a node is essentially a bunch of code. So somebody has sat down, wrote code that will work in this workflow, so that when you click this, it knows what to do, okay? Because we can't just say, well, okay, so I want to load a checkpoint. Well, the computer has to know, what does that mean to load a checkpoint, okay? What happens when you load a checkpoint? So I can't just talk to a computer and say, load a checkpoint. It doesn't know what the word load means. It doesn't know what the checkpoint means. So I have to define those things. I have to define what loading means. I have to define checkpointing. And I don't define it through English words. I define it through programming language. I program it, and then I give it English words or whatever words, so that then the person reading it can know what that is. Well, let's go over and take a look and see what this looks like. So if we go over to our ComfyUI folder, you're going to see in here, we click into our ComfyUI, that's our main thing. You're going to see we have a folder called Custom Nodes. Now let's go in here. Often, as you know, when we're doing our stuff here, it'll say things like there's a missing node or something. And so we go over to our manager and we can install missing nodes or do whatever we need to do. Okay. When those install, they install into this folder. Okay. So let's grab one of these. Let's grab this ComfyUI Essentials and look in here. And what you're going to see is there's a whole bunch of code here, which I'm not going to pretend to know how this all flows together, but you're going to see that it has different py files, which are different Python files. And inside of these py files, they're going to define what each one of these nodes does. Here we go over to this other one, let's go to the HunYuan video wrapper, okay? Same thing, you're going to see nodes here, you're going to see a bunch of different stuff that all going to rely on each other. It's just a computer program that's relying on other bits of code. And let's go inside of here real quick. And here we have some code that that has been defined. So let's go ahead and look at this. We can go through here. You don't need to understand what all this is, but you can see they're defining functions. So basically, if something happens, call this thing. That's what, when you see def, they're defining a function, okay? So like an example would be if I pick up my phone, okay, and I press a button. Okay, I press the button 1. Well, what does that do? Okay, because it does something when I press it, right? It makes a sound, it sends a signal. So you would have to define that button. So maybe it would be on click, okay, or after click, or send message. These would all be definitional functions of that button, okay? And we're going to talk more about how we put those together, but that's essentially what a definition is. That's a function. And so you see these files are all different functions that get called. So when I go back over here to my thing and I click on this and something happens, that's because a function has been defined. Okay, when I go over here and I type stuff in, or it gives me a box to type it in, that's because a function has been defined that allows for that box. Okay, when I press the arrow and I change stuff over here, again, because somewhere somebody has defined a function. And that's what all of this stuff is, okay? So again, you don't have to worry about what all this means. You're not going to touch any of this stuff, okay? But we're going to now talk about how we function those together, and we function those through what are called classes, okay? So a class is essentially an object that has a bunch of functions in it, okay? So when we go over here back to our nodes, okay, a node is essentially not just one definition, but it's a class which has several functions in it, okay? So we create the load checkpoint class. We create the empty latent image class. We create the clip text encode class. And just as we see in this thing here, we create a class, but inside of this, you're going to have multiple definitions. See, we've got the big class up here, which is this Hunyuan video T-cache. And then inside of that, we have things that it does. Okay, we define it. All right, so you could think of a class as like a blueprint. So let's say you got Tesla, and Tesla has the Tesla Cybertruck or whatever, and they have a blueprint on how to create that Tesla Cybertruck. That could be considered a class. So they go create, let's just pretend they have a big just machine that just creates them, okay? And they say, it's like on Star Trek. All you got to do is just say, hey, give me some Earl Grey tea, okay? And so it goes and it finds the blueprint or the class. It looks through what it is, and it creates that thing, okay? Now, with classes, you can set parameters in there, so we'll have things like color, height, or width, or whatever, which is how we get the different numbers and whatnot that we have over here, like when we change these things. Okay, so we can change the parameters of that class. So we can make the Tesla blue or red or orange or whatever. Those are all parts of the class. So I'm going to show you, let's go over here and I'll show you a quick example of what a simple class looks like. So let's pop over here to ChatGPT, and I had it create a simple box class. So let's say we just wanted to build a box, all right? And, a square, a box, a cube, okay? And we create a class called a box so that when we get ready to create it, we can always just say create the box, okay? But we give it some parameters, so we have to define what it is. So we define it as a self, or as itself, okay? We define it with a color, a width, a height, and a depth, okay? So it's three-dimensional. So we set the color, we can set the color, we can set the width, we can set the height, we can set the depth. Then we give it some, okay, this, by the way, this definition here just means when it's first created, give it these things. That's what this def init means. So when it's created, give it these parameters, okay? Color, width, height, and depth. Okay, now we give it some other functions. So we want to print out the box details. So we create a definition called describe. So it would print out this is and then it would give it the color box with these dimensions. And then it would go up here and figure out what its dimensions are. So every time I create a box, it's going to create a new, what's called instantiation of this, or a new instance of this. So I could have 20 different boxes with 20 different, color, width, height, depth things, and they would all identify. This is why the self is here. They would all identify as unique. So they all have the exact same abilities, the functions, the definitions in there, but they all have different values. Okay. So when I'm calling this one, I'll call this one box A. Okay. If I tell it to describe itself, it's going to describe itself by its own parameters. If I want to change the color, I have a function here called change color. So then I could, the box allows its color to be changed, but notice it doesn't allow for its height or width to be changed because there's no definitional function on how to do that. Okay, but I could add that there. But this is a basic class, okay, and this class has functions. Or now, as we want to take it back to our Comfy stuff, it's a node, okay? So in the case of working with ComfyUI workflows, you get a bunch of Python code that has classes in it, okay, that work as nodes. So that's what a ComfyUI node is. So when we load up a workflow, so we go and we pick up you can't quite see it here, but I'm gonna go pick up a new workflow over here. So then when we go to a workflow and it says, okay, well, this was a Honeywell text to video thing. And it has a whole bunch of different it has a bunch of different nodes. Now, when you first load this, it's going to say these nodes aren't known, okay? And that's when we go over to where it says, you know, our manager here, and then we install missing nodes. Because what it's saying is, it says, okay, this workflow is saying to use a certain class, a certain node that has different functions in it, but I don't know what that is. So you need to install it, and that's when we go over to our manager and we click install nodes. It goes over to our file explorer here and it creates the area, and then it installs the nodes. So next time you load it up, it goes, oh, okay, it's calling for this class, this node, and now I know what that node is and I know what it does. Okay, so essentially, let's say this Honeywell Video VAE loader, if I found that code, I could go in there and I could delete all the functions and it could still show up and it would say, oh, I know what this is, but it wouldn't know how to do anything. Okay, so I could make that would just be called what's called a shell. Okay, but it's populated with functions. Okay, and those functions interact with other functions. And classes can interact with other classes, right? You know, this kind of thing. So maybe like going back to our box analogy, I've got a box class, but I also have a table class. And so I want to take the box and I want to put it on the table. And so maybe the box has let's say, you know, the box had height, width, color. Maybe it has a parameter or a value of location. And so I can change its location. And so I want to put it on the table, but that table is itself an own class because it's going to have number of legs, it's going to have height, width, color, sturdiness, all this kind of stuff. Okay, so it also is a class. So classes interact with classes, and in the same way, in our ComfyUI, we now have this Honeywell Video VAE loader, but it's probably also dependent on other classes as well. But the point is, we've installed it. ComfyUI knows where it is now. It knows what it can do. It doesn't just know it, but it knows it because it's defined in code over here as to what it is. Okay, so that is the kind of basic comprehension of what's going on here. Now, let's go back to our basic one here. Now, if we want to go ahead and add nodes to it, what we do is we can just right click. You'll see it says add node. Okay, so basically add objects. It's an object is another way of thinking of a node, a class. And then we can go down here and we can see all of the different node types that have been installed. So when you first run this, you're not going to have some of these things. The video helper suite isn't going to be there. The Honeywell video wrapper isn't going to be there. But your basics are going to be here. So like your loaders. So we could click on load LoRa. And now it's going to load a new class. So it just instantiated a new object. See? Now watch, I can change. I could go loaders again, and I add another load LoRa. So now I have two of these. Think of it like in Toy Story. Remember when the space guy, and he walks into the toy store and he sees a whole bunch of himself, and he's like, I'm not unique or whatever, because there's a whole bunch of him in there. Well, it's the same way. They're all unique in the sense that they're their own object, but they all have the same basic build. See? So here I have created 4 LoRas that are all the same thing, but watch it. I can change each one of these. This one, I could give different parameters to each one of these things, and now they're all unique, right? So just kind of like humans all have the same DNA, basic DNA, but we have differences. And you create a human, for the most part, as long as everything goes right, you're going to have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, noses, all this kind of stuff. And so in the same way, when we add node and we add something in here, we're instantiating a new version of it. So this could be called object 1, object 2, object 3, object 4, object 5, okay? And that is how nodes work. Now, with this, what we would do is we'd have to find where these apply into. We'd probably put this clip over to here. We'd run our model over to here. Let's see, we would do something like this. And get rid of these. But see, what we can do is we can add new functionality that works in here. So now, instead of just running this model here and creating the beautiful scenery, we can actually create different, we can use different LoRa's in here to more define it. So we added into it the functionality of another class. Okay, so before we didn't have this. It was just this class was interacting with this class, was interacting with this class, but now we added a class in there, a node, and we said, well, let's interact with this class, and then we did the wiring. And the wiring itself is also pre-programmed. So when it looks in there, it says one of the functionalities it'll have is connect to this other thing, but you have to define what it can connect to. And that's what these guys that are programming these nodes for us do, is they create these incredible nodes that can interact with each other while avoiding the others. Notice if I click on this model thing here, watch, I'm not going to be able to connect it to this clip. See how it's nice bright yellow? Watch, I'm going to go here, it doles out. It's not going to let me do that. So somehow in there they have programmed to not allow this node to connect to the wrong place. Okay? So with nodes, you can create incredibly powerful workflows, okay, as long as they're all kind of coming from the same place. LoRa is probably one of the biggest ones that you'll use, and you pretty much just put your checkpoints into it and flow it back out again. But you can create incredibly in-depth stuff. Again, if we go back over to our text to video over here, you can see these are all using what's down here, this add nodes, the ComfyUI video wrappers. So they're using these things. For this one, we would have to, if we want to do a LoRa, we'd have to do probably this LoRa select here. Okay, we wouldn't use the other class, the basic class of it, because it doesn't work. Okay, so maybe we could run this one. Yeah, see, we could run that one into there. It's this class is specifically made for ComfyUI to work with ComfyUI classes. Okay, so just like, again, you're driving a Jaguar, and the parts for Jaguar aren't going to work for driving a Camaro or something like that, right? Toyota parts aren't going to work with Honda parts. Okay, so you have different objects, different classes for each of these cars, but they're designed to work with the other objects that pertain to that vehicle itself. Okay, the mechanism. Okay, the car itself, the Toyota Camry or whatever being the main object, and then all of the components, all of the classes, and they're working together to make that larger thing. But it doesn't mean that those pieces are going to work for the larger thing of a Ford pickup truck. Okay, because the object, the bigger thing, the big picture, okay, is made up of specific classes or nodes that work for that. In the same way over here, we have nodes particularly built for ComfyUI, and they're not going to work with LTX, and they're not going to work with your basic image generation. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here, but again, this is your workflow. This is one giant thing that we're doing here. When all of these things work together, when we turn the key and the gas pump goes and the radiator flushes water and the filter engages, all this stuff, the spark hits, the car starts. Okay, when all of the pieces work together, and this, it comes together and it creates the object, which is the image. So this is an image generating machine here. All right, and thus it has its own classes and nodes. Okay, I think before we muddle this up any further, we'll end it there. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. A lot of this stuff is it's conceptual. If you really want to know more about it, you can find stuff on the internet, but I remember back in the 90s when I took my first software design class, and it was just like, whoa, it was just eye-opening. It wasn't for one particular language. It was just kind of comprehending the idea of, oh, if I click this, it hits a command which does this and does that. And that's the kind of comprehension I think that will really blow your mind. It's like music theory. You don't have to know how to play the trumpet and the guitar and the oboe and all the stuff to understand music theory. Music theory doesn't change depending on the instrument you're using, because the principles remain the same, and then you use it in different manner for different instruments. Same way with software and all this stuff. Once you understand the basics, it starts to help your comprehension of, oh, this is what's happening. Oh, okay. So I don't know the technicalities of exactly what's happening, but I understand the bigger picture. And that's what we're going for here. So in the meanwhile, you guys stay good. Go call someone up. Tell them you love them. Tell them you're thinking about them. I'm sure that will make someone's day. In the meanwhile, you stay good. Hit us up on the Discord and come be part of our community. We'd love to have you around, see what you're working on. So you guys stay good. And as always, we're going to see you on the other side.